Seeing this video's title and thumbnail, your first reaction might have been one of the following. If you got at least a little annoyed that this budget game could be better than Mario Kart World, I implore you to hear me out. This isn't just because of the ad, I promise, and leave the Sonic prejudice at the door. If you do already agree with this, do keep in mind that Mario Kart World is still a solid game on its own right, and we will be going over everything that both games do right and wrong. If you don't care either way, then I hope this is at the very least entertaining. When Mario Kart World was first talked about in depth to the public, people's excitement was way off the charts. But that same day, there was a little post from Sonic's social media trying to promote Sonic racing Crossworlds. And they tried to keep the rivalry up, but initial reactions were not in its favor. At least until the price stuff came out, but we'll get there. Times have come and gone, and the fan praise for both of these games has gone a little all over the place. There's a few debates about which one is better. It's just like the 90s debates on the platformers, I think. I wasn't born back then, but anyway. By making the title and thumbnail what it is, I already stated my stance. But I thought it would be interesting to compare these two games side by side, and see what aspects I prefer on each of them, with the idea to let people be open to either option regardless of where they stand. I'll do my best to remain as neutral as possible in this video, though I won't be afraid to criticize what I don't like, so be warned. Subscribe if you enjoy, and let's race. Let's start on a positive note. Something that I think both games excel at, aesthetics. Let's go for visuals first, and let's start with Mario Kart World, and I mean, come on. You've probably seen dozens of videos about people being happy they went with the art style they did, and for good reason. They've leaned so hard into the cartoony style, and it does look phenomenal. All the characters look so happy to be there. Even if people took a bit to get used to the new Donkey Kong, eventually they warmed up to him. And everything in the world looks so nice. From the eastern vibes of Cheep Cheep Falls, to the bustling marketplace of Shy Guy Bazaar, to the ever so gorgeous Rainbow Road, it looks so nice. Crossworlds goes for something different. It looks sleeker and isn't as focused on being cartoony. However, the game itself also looks phenomenal. From the depths of White Cave to the open seas of Metal Harbor, as well as the pretty skies of Sky Road. It's pretty hard to compare both games in visuals, because which one does it better purely comes down to which style you prefer more. I'm leaning towards Mario Kart on this one, but it's really close. They both still look incredible in their own right. Soundtrack has a similar story. Sonic music has always been known for how good it is, regardless of everything else found in the games. And this time it's no exception. They have so many styles covered, including incredible remixes of past games. We got classic bangers like Dragon Road, some incredible new stuff like Wonder Museum, and who could forget the incredible saxophone of cyberspace. But yeah, Sonic music good, big surprise. How does Mario Kart compare? Well, that game's soundtrack is also really good. They turned the relaxing Koopa Troopa beach into a rave. Boo Cinema is, well, absolute cinema. And as a Latino, I have a really soft spot for Dragon's Burnout. Though most of these songs wouldn't be as good as what Sonic has. However, what Mario Kart doesn't have in greatness, it does have in numbers. Because holy shit, there's so many remixes from other Mario games in here. Not just other Mario Kart games, other Mario games. Not that the Mario Kart remixes are bad, far from it. Just take a listen to DK Summit here. But we also have remixes covering stuff like Fossil Falls from Mario Odyssey. Even other spin-offs like Mario Paint can be found. And hell, we have WarioWare represented in too. Even if the songs aren't as good as Sonic, the fact that the coverage is this wide gives it the edge for me. Wow! For a video titled in favor of Crossworlds, it seems to not be the favorable option right now. Well, now that the aesthetics are done, we get to talk about gameplay, and fair warning, this is where the tone starts to shift. Let's begin with the driving mechanics. Of course you got the standard accelerate, drift, and brake, but the physics of both games are very different. In both cases, they might need a few races to truly get used to them, due to the unique feel, but once you do, they feel really good. Taking tight turns is nice, sometimes the brakes are necessary to make turns even tighter, and going around shortcuts is always a good feeling. You got 3 different levels of boost when you drift in both games, which charge faster on a tighter line. Here's where the driving differs though. Mario Kart World has all the parkour mechanics, from charge jumping to wall riding to rail grinding, which can lead to crazy stuff like this being done. Pretty crazy, huh? Water driving at first is pretty similar to driving on land, just a little slower, but whenever you land on water you got a little bounce for another trick chance. And waves can also form based on the track or items around, which can allow for some interesting shortcut potential. Gliding also exists, but it feels very unwieldy, and you're often not on a glider for very long, so it's not that big a factor. What does Crossworlds get? Well, at a base level, it's more about managing your drift. Just like in past Sonic racing games, this one has a counter drift system. If you let go of drift and quickly press it again, you can turn your drift direction around without losing your entire charge. You do still lose part of your meter, but it will never deplete below your latest charge. Tricking also works entirely differently. It's about flicking your control stick into a lot of directions instead of timing a hop to a ramp. The longer you trick for, the bigger the boost. Water driving differs greatly from land driving though. Now you can charge a drift without steering into a direction, and letting go of it will do a charge jump. Huh. Anyway, in straightaways the best way to go is to spam level 2 charges, and trick whenever you jump to gain speed. Also, this means that you don't really take wide turns, you just steer into a direction, though it is a little slippery to do. To combat this, you simply let go of accelerate a few times when taking a tight turn, maybe even let it go completely at some points, then it's smooth sailing. Otherwise, you're eating wall. Flying works very different from gliding in World though. It's freeform flying, you can even drift in it. It's also pretty unwieldy at first, but it feels nicer to control once you get the hang of it. You can even pseudo snake in the air with this. Note the first few words I said for that Crossworlds explanation. At a base level. That is because you actually have a lot of customization freedom in Crossworlds. And I'm not just talking about the car parts that you can mix and match and paint over, though that's obviously a really nice addition as well. Look at this cat car I made. But no, what I'm really talking about here is the gadgets. With such a simple system, you can heavily modify the way you play the game. There's some basic kits for certain stats if you don't want to bother too much, but you can really go crazy with the builds here. To show you some examples, this simple build increases my ring cap, and allows me to trick faster and get rings for it. This means that I'm almost never low on rings. This next one gives me 3 item slots, gives me an item whenever I finish a lap, and allows me to rotate them with the press of a button. This one allows me to have a lot more item strategy. My favorite build revolves around the drift charge though. This build gives drift charges a 4th level, which makes the boost last longer and gives full invincibility for a few seconds. I also combine this with the gadget that makes a counter drift actually add a full level to your drift instead of draining it, adding a faster charge for level 2 charge as well, and this is the ultimate snaking build. And there's so many more builds you can make based off on stuff like item chances, ring collection, etc. You can take the same character, card, and map, but the gadgets will make 2 races feel fundamentally different, adding so much replayability. I mentioned items just a moment ago, so I guess I should really talk about them, huh? They're the intended balancing factor that allows less skilled players to still have a chance. But finding the right balance for them is tough. Too strong, and the game risks being just luck. Too weak, and one may wonder what's the point. How do these 2 games handle it? Well, for Mario Kart, it's kind of the same expense as forever ago. Save motions for off-road cuts, lay bananas in common spot, use greens to defend from reds, try and dodge a shock. I'm glad it's not as defense-saver as Mario Kart Deluxe was. And sure, with 24 players it can get a little bit chaotic, particularly when you're in the pack, but with the recent patch increasing invincibility, it shouldn't be as big a problem. Bagging is also a thing, but we'll circle back to that. Good driving is still very important to this game, though a poorly timed item will still often ruin your races. When it comes to Crossworlds, it's a little bit more complicated. When the first closed beta happened, the items were very overtuned. They were nerfed quite a bit for the open network test, and still a fair bit overtuned. They were nerfed again for the fall release, and while they're in a state that I am personally mostly happy with, some people would still argue they're overtuned. And they claim that they can drive perfectly on laps 1 and 2, but lap 3 they get hit by something and get stuck in the vortex, and end up getting something like 9. And sure, that's part of the experience, but they claim it happens too often. But I personally had the opposite experience. Sure, this happens to me sometimes, but most of the times I lose comes down to a genuine mistake on my end. It's generally not this bad for me. I think part of it comes down to the fact that items all have more counterplay available, and thus are allowed to be more powerful / frequent. As a general sense, there are gadgets that are literally made for defensive play if you really want to spec into that, but I don't think it's necessary. The slime, this game's version of the shot, which is also an accessibility problem, please fix that, gives you time to react before it hits, and a simple boost item is enough to avoid it. However, it's not the only item to give you that warning. The anvils also work like that, which serve to slow down first and second place. And Dark Chow also works like this, but he actually reshuffles everyone's items, even if they don't have any. So sometimes it's beneficial to get hit by Dark Chow. It's up to you if you want to take that risk or not. These are the only items that could possibly take away someone else's items, with the exception of the slicers, being the only item I have major problems with. Why do we need a lock-on saw blade that's this powerful when we already have a red punch that's locked on, and we also have a green punch you can lock on if you aim it properly? Which is also unnecessary, and honestly, that should have been a gadget. But the game's still fairly young, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out, and this could always be adjusted further with patches. What wouldn't be as easily adjustable is the track design, since changing them will make a lot of time trials invalid. However, I don't really think they need to change too much, because both games cook really hard with the track design. Crossworlds genuinely might have my favorite track design out of any racing game. It takes full advantage of all mechanics, from tricking to water riding to flying. It has big open sections, while in close ones, the turns are satisfying to do, item buttons are placed in sparse locations, so are rings. And hell, in Grand Prix, you can even get red rings, which can teach you about alternate paths you might have otherwise not realized were there. It's banger after banger after banger, with the exception of Blizzard Valley, but that's the only legitimate low point here. Mario Kart World's track design doesn't hit the same heights for me, but they do allow for all the parkour mechanics to shine. From the iconic ring cut in Great Block Ruins, to the weird looking shroomless cut in Acorn Heights, to the 20 million methods to do the Bowser Castle lava cut. When the game lets you in on the race courses, it can be genuinely some of the most satisfying gameplay you can get. But that's the thing, when the game lets you in on the race courses. Because, infamously, Mario Kart World is very picky on when you get to do that. So, the main gimmick of the game is that it's a vast, connected world that you can explore around in free roam, but it also affects your races. Instead of just racing 3 laps on a course, players will drive from whatever course you just finished to the next one as part of the race, and do 1 lap on the actual course. It's a cool idea in concept, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Most of these sections, which players have been calling intermissions, suffer from the same flaws. They are mostly just straight lines with very little turning involved, and the few turns that you can take can be largely skipped. The optimal strategy for 90% of these intermissions is to intentionally slow down, stay at the back, try to grab as many item boxes as possible to get a golden mushroom plus some other crazy item, then take one of those large cuts and smuggle the other item into first place, ideally near the end of the race. This is known as bagging, and while I don't personally mind the strategy existing, I don't think it should be this powerful. But if you're trying to win, why would you do anything else? There's some advanced techniques you can do to make the straight lines more interesting, but aside from those being pretty underexplored due to the 202 intermissions, it's also never going to be nearly as good as just bagging in the back. Some people have argued that the intermissions aren't that bad. They have a nice scenery and small shroom cuts you can take. But unfortunately, most of the small cuts are too early to really make a noticeable impact. Bagging is all about choosing when to catch up, and it's almost always optimal to do it near the end. This means that actually just going in the straight line for most of the intermissions is actually better, since you would optimally want to catch up near the end of the intermission if there's a big cut, or somewhere along the actual track, which means you're holding your power items for a long time and just farming up to 20 coins. Even if they're stuck in the straight lines, it really does not matter in most scenarios. Players were, obviously, not very happy with this. They were even less happy to find out that worldwides, which only give you 3 options on a random, are usually gonna be filled with intermissions. Early on in the game, players found out that by voting random you will always get a guaranteed lap type course. Nintendo, being Nintendo, saw this as an issue that needed to be patched, and people were mad. Now, with more patches, the rate of lap type courses has steadily been increased over time, sure, but there's still no way to guarantee yourself playing a lap type course without making a friend room. This issue could have been avoided if they simply made a separate lobby queue that's exclusive to lap type courses. That way, people who like intermissions can still play them, while people who don't can avoid them. Unlike Mario, Crossworlds doesn't have such a fatal flaw to worry about. Its main gimmick, at a surface level, is kinda similar to Mario's, but the execution is significantly better. You do the first lap on the selected course like normal, then at the end of said lap, 2 warp rings will appear. The player in the lead gets to choose which of the 2 rings gets chosen by going to the left or right. One of the rings will send everyone to one of the 15 available Crossworlds, shown to the players beforehand, while the other will send everyone to a random track, not shown, which could be either a Crossworld or a regular track. Regardless, players will then proceed to the 1 lap of whatever destination they were sent to, before getting sent back to the initial course for lap 3. But the course has been modified for lap 3, sometimes slightly, sometimes pretty heavily. Also, the Crossworlds sections have a chance to give a frenzy, which will be indicated in the warp rings. The frenzy could be something like infinite boost items, to placing a bunch of boost rings in your path, and you never know what to expect until you go in. And sure, some of the Crossworlds can be a little closer to straight line design in Mario Kart World. In fact, Hidden World is as straight as it gets. But because the game allows for so many ways to speed up even on straight lines, I barely even noticed it until I had to look at things for this video. Grand Prix even does something creative with it. There's only 3 main courses per cup, but the 4th race actually makes you do 1 lap of each course in the order you played them in. I think that's a very smart way to go around it, and low-key wish there was a way to do this online. The difference in how the games handle their main gimmick is the reason why I consider Crossworlds to be the better game. Yes, Mario Kart World has a lot of good about it, and if you don't mind the animations, then I can totally understand preferring it. I don't even dislike them as much as most people, so I get it. But it's nice to play a game where I can guarantee I'll be doing actual laps in courses and have it be a fun time. There's a little bit more to compare here at the end, but it mostly relates to side content that's different from the racing modes. Aside from time trials, which both games have, Mario Kart World has 3 different side modes you can play. The only returning one is Battle Mode, which... I'll be honest, I have not seen a single positive thing about it being said, ever, and for good reason. After the greatness of 8 Deluxe's Battle Mode, this is very disappointing. But let's be honest, do you really care about Battle Mode? Most people don't. The other 2 side modes of Mario Kart World are way more interesting, and these are where the interconnected world really shines. Free roam allows you to just explore on the world to your heart's content. There's little P-switch missions, speech medallions, and questionable panels to get, so it's not just roaming around for the sake of it. Some have claimed to have bored of it fast, but I don't know, it's cute to do from time to time. The real attraction here is Knockout Tour. This is where the intermissions shine. You pass by 6 tracks in the world, and after every checkpoint, 4 players will be eliminated, until you get to the final track and do 1 entire lap of it with 4 players. It can get pretty hectic when you're close to the checkpoints, and bagging is significantly riskier since you can't save up items for the track at the end if you don't make it to the track. This also makes those small shortcuts I mentioned earlier a lot more valuable. It's a shame there's only 8 rallies to choose from, Would've been cool to have more of them, like the ones that my friend HP Bowsy made in his video about the topic, wink wink nudge nudge. Crossworlds goes in a different direction with side content. Let's start with something that isn't really side content, but is a feature that most players aren't gonna experience regularly. Supersonic speed. This is this game's equivalent of 200cc, which is strangely missing from Mario Kart World. You drive faster, turns are harder, but it's really fun once you get the hang of it. Makes races feel more extreme than they already are. But okay, let's talk real side content. Most of it can be found in what's known as the race park. To say it simple, this is where you can do your quick versus and custom matches, which by the way have a lot of customization options, from eligible Crossworlds to custom items to disabling frenzies, but it also includes something else, a dedicated gimmick team mode. This can be either 3 teams of 4 or 2 teams of 6, with the team scores adding up at the end. But there's also a secondary objective to follow. This could be collecting the most rings, or bumping your teammates, or landing hits, doing tricks, and so on. The team who did the best in these side objectives will get bonus points at the end, which could be enough to seal the victory. I call these side modes, but there's one more thing about these. Events like this are what constitute the game's festivals. Festivals are limited time events to celebrate the addition of new crossover characters. Before a match starts, you get assigned a team at random, and then you proceed to do the race park modes that I just talked about. By the end of the event, all the points for each team add up. It's actually kinda similar to Splatfests from Splatoon if you're familiar with that series. These do bring a fresh spin on races by bringing a side objective, without deviating too hard from them. So most players should find at least some enjoyment out of it. That being said, I've seen some people really dislike these gimmicks. And unfortunately for them, just like in Splatfest, they won't be able to play anything else while the festival is on. They're forced to play the festival. While I think the hatred for the modes is a little exaggerated, the fact that you're forced to play the festival and regular queuing is not in the game at the same time definitely sucks, and is something that should be addressed in future patches. When I originally scripted this, we didn't have any festivals in the full game, just the Joker festival and the online network test. I had to re-record this line once the Mico festival happened, and I was thinking I wouldn't need to do much else. But then the Minecraft festival was announced to be a week after the Mico festival, and that's not good. The gimmicks are different, sure, but removing the main online mode for 3 days at least once every week is not a good sign. Especially because the gimmicks for the Minecraft festival are a lot more volatile and some people don't like it nearly as much. Not only that, but Minecraft World is guaranteed to show up in the track selection every single time. I understand wanting to increase the odds, but guaranteeing it is only going to make people get sick of it. So yeah, festivals are pretty flawed. I still like them, but they're pretty flawed. Thankfully, I have hopes that this is going to be addressed in a patch, because Sega actually listens to their fans. But we'll see how that goes. Okay, I wasn't originally intending to talk about this, but due to some controversy going around, I guess I should talk about DLC, huh? Mario Kart World, despite being out for over 3.5 months at the time of reading this, does not have any sort of DLC or even announcement, which is very surprising. They had a whole 20-minute section of Mario in the most recent Direct, and not even a brief mention of Mario Kart World? That's strange, but not necessarily controversial. No. The controversy lies with Sonic, because, of course, we had a good roadmap for DLC for quite some time now. 6 tracks, bunch of characters, some free, some paid, it's good stuff. What we didn't know until recently is that the DLC costs $30. Now, I got the Digital Deluxe Edition, so for me it's only $20. So it doesn't hit me personally as hard. But $30 is definitely a bit on the pricey side. Some people are comparing it to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC for Mario Kart 8 I can't do that in one take anymore. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe game, which is understandable. But here's my hot take. I think that game's DLC was underpriced for what it was. Seriously, think about it. They doubled that game's size and added even more characters that weren't originally promised for half the game price. Sure, the graphics sucked in the first couple waves, but it's fucking Mario Kart, who cares? The tracks were still fun to play. I would have expected Nintendo to charge $40 or maybe even $50 for this, especially considering ordered certain game DLC packs. Again, I do think $30 is a smidge overpriced, but I don't think it's overpriced enough to cause this much of an outrage, especially considering the context. They are collaborating with IPs from other companies, like the best-selling game of all time, or fucking SpongeBob, so I can at least understand why. I do think $25 would have been a better price for it, with $15 being for the Digital Deluxe Edition, but oh well. I guess if we're on the topic of DLC pricing, we should probably talk about the price of the main games. Mario Kart World should not have been $80, but let's be real, they probably did it so they could charge it for $50 in the bundle. It's a marketing tactic, and it worked. I don't really need to spend a lot of time talking about that though. the game should have been $70 and it would have been fine. However, they can get away with it regardless because it's super fucking Mario, of course you can. Have you seen the Galaxy ports? Sonic Racing Crossworlds, however, is not so lucky. The game is $70. Now, as someone who bought the game, I can say it was 100% worth it. But when the price was first announced, I wasn't happy. No one was happy. Everyone expected the game to be $50 or even $60. This is one of the things that hurt this game's reputation really badly before release, and I likely would have had more people interested had it been cheaper. Thankfully, unlike Nintendo games, Sonic games tend to go on sale not too infrequently, and I'm sure we'll get some sort of holiday sale for it. So if you want to grab the game but don't want to spend $70, that'll be your chance. Before I give my closing thoughts, I just want to talk about a few things that are extra flair. For Sonic Racing Crossworlds first. With it being a Sonic game, character interactions are pretty important, and this game does not disappoint. There are so many callbacks to previous games.
Oh, you're a sneaky one. You won't creep up on me. I'm lashing out in all directions all the time. Hiya, hiya, hiya.
He's even more unhinged than the last time we faced off. I'll need to be extra careful when dealing with him this time.
Characters who have never interacted finally get a chance to.
You're supposed to be the brawn? You don't look so tough to me.
Oh, I'm plenty tough. I'll break you into so many pieces, they'll call you Shatter the Hedgehog.
And the dialogue is honestly pretty funny sometimes.
Hey there, do you like to race too?
Do I like to? Are you kidding me? Do you know who I am?
It's a great time for everyone who isn't an Amy fan. Yeah, she got mellowed out a bit too hard, but that's a topic for another time. Mario Kart World doesn't have character interactions like this, but it does have a lot of characters. Seriously, they didn't need to add all these NPC drivers, but they did, and I love playing as these little guys. Sure, the unlock method for it kinda sucks, or at least it did until the newest patch, but it really wasn't meant to be grinded out. It was more of a it'll happen naturally kind of thing. But hey, we have the new method now if you want to grind. Either way, I'm glad they're here. But I love that they, alongside the other characters, have really exaggerated animations. A harsh throw for the blue shell, the big boom letters for a bomb, and even their facial expressions are on another level, particularly when they know they're about to be blown up. So many little details that the average player is very unlikely to see. Not to say Sonic has bad animations, they're very good actually, but I do like these a lot more. Mario Kart's UI is also pretty nice. It's simple, communicates everything you need without getting in the way, and it also just looks nice in general. Sonic's UI can seem a little busy at times, and while I personally haven't had any issues with that myself, I can understand why it will be overwhelming for some. Thankfully you can turn certain elements off, but if you feel like you have to, something's gone wrong. One more benefit of Crossworlds that I want to talk about is the simple fact that it's out on all major consoles and allows for crossplay. This means like people like me, who got the game on Steam, can play with people regardless of which platform they've got the game in. But as another benefit from a PC owner, modding is an option. Your mileage on modding may vary, as some people don't like mods at all, but I don't know. Every now and then having a silly mod doesn't hurt. Mods also offer cool stuff, like restoring the Warhawk's voice.
Okay, let's go.
And I could keep going about a lot of finer details, like how both games have some decent issues with item collision, how harsh the off-road is in Sonic, how punishing Lakitu can be in Mario Kart, among other things. But this video has been going on long enough. I gotta close it out at some point. I made my stance clear before you even clicked on the video. I like Sonic Racing Crossworlds better than Mario Kart World. Its driving mechanics and how the Crossworlds work are just a lot more fun to me compared to Mario Kart's. But this doesn't make Mario Kart World a bad game by any means. I still think the game is very well made, and some of the bigger issues have been steadily getting patched out as well. After patches are all done, I'm sure it will be in a really good spot for a majority of players. At the end of the day, which game you like more is going to depend on personal preference. Do you like snaking on straightaways in Sonic? That's valid. Prefer Mario's parkour mechanics? Very fair. You just wanna chill out and play free roam? It's understandable. People are going to have reasons to prefer one game over the other, and they're all valid for thinking the way they do. I just think that if you're on the camp that has a distaste for one of these games, you should give it a real chance. Crossworlds has a free demo you can try out, and I'm sure you can find someone in your area with a Switch too that you can give Mario Kart a chance in if needed. Anyway, that's it for this video, and this ballooned into a much bigger project than I anticipated. But I guess that's what happens when you try to go into details for 2 games, huh? Truth be told, by the time I finish the script and recording lines, I actually don't have a Switch 2 yet. I've only played Mario Kart World for a few hours at a friend's house, but I've followed up everything about the game that I can. By the time this video goes up, I will have already obtained a Switch 2, and we'll see if there's any changes to my script from that, though probably not. But what do you guys think? Is there an awesome detail about either game that I missed? Something that holds back the experience that I didn't talk about? Let me know in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care.